Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. I'm here to show you the monthly chart at Unity. This is one of the companies that will be reporting Monday after hours, and I do own the stock. I am adding to it every week. This is one that I have tweeted about on X many times over the past year. And I want to show you what I think about the technicals, and I want to show you what I'm thinking based on the weekly and the monthly time frame. The whole idea about Unity is a software company. It does incorporate AI. Is involved in metaverse. It is one of the metaverse companies that Apple is partnering with. Matter of fact, on the Apple discussion of their Apple Vision Pro, they refer to Unity several times over and over again. There was a lot of hype just a few months ago when it comes to Unity. And then just a couple months ago, there has been a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt when it comes to this stock. In particular, the previous CEO, which is no longer with the company, he wanted to charge runtime fees, and that really had upset a lot of developers. There have been a lot of developers that became very, very vocal on social media saying that they are not going to use Unity because of that, and then they're not going to come back to it because of that. There have been a lot of reputational damage, and but the thing about it, even when that was happening, even before that, the trend was already going down. This was kind of like the hype cycle when it comes to the Apple Vision Pro announcement, and when they were mentioning Unity over and over again, this is kind of like the buy candle for that. And this is kind of like the fear cycle of when they're talking about developers leaving and not coming back to Unity to go into the competition because they just don't find the charges to be fair, and this is ridiculous. There's a lot of fear when it comes to that stock, and it sold off. One big thing is I just want to show you when the news of the Apple Vision Pro happened, like the volume was huge on this buy up, right? But when it comes to the sell volume here, when it comes to the fear, uncertainty, doubt, the volume actually was not that impressive, right? This whole thing still looks kind of like an accumulation range. Now, around here, around November, was when they hit the last earnings. And when the earnings came out, I really thought the numbers didn't really look too bad. And I tweeted about it. And, the after hours, after earnings came out, it was like negative 15% or something ridiculous, right? I tweeted out that the fundamentals really weren't that bad. And for me to tweet something about the fundamentals is something that is not unusual for me to do. I'm just generally not that eloquent on the fundamentals, but something was amiss there, and I became verbal about it. Sure enough, right after the next day, even though after hours, after earnings was like negative 15, the next day actually the stock turned out to be positive, right? So Wall Street agrees with me. Cathie Wood was buying heavy when that happened. There is a lot of institutional support. Now I'm going to show you some data here in a little bit, but there's a lot of institutional support here. And Cathie Wood's fund, the ARK fund, one of the top 10 holding is Unity. Right? I think right now it's like number 10. If you look at the ARK fund, the trend really is very favorable. I'm going to show you a couple things. One is starting to look out like a breakout of this negative trend line here, and it went back for a back test, right? A very similar thing happened back in 2015, 2017. And after that, it had a pretty big run up for about 4 years, right? We're maybe experiencing some very, very similar thing here, right? Another thing I already labeled here, I'm going to show you the Bollinger Band with the 20-month moving average here. It's curling upwards, right? Just like it did over here. And when it does that, and when there was a Bollinger squeeze, right? And when the Bollinger Band starts to expand, there's a potential for it to have a pretty significant bull trend once basis here picks a direction as the Bollinger Band expands, right? Right now it's looking like it wants to go up. It's getting pretty favorable for the ARK fund, and again, I've tweeted about this earlier today and many, many times over the past year. If you look back at my tweet, I think I probably called the bottom maybe like a few days after it bottomed. I have anyway. It's not about what I should. Anyway, I'm not gonna brag. But the point is, I think I'm really starting to see a trend change here, and there really is a lot of confirmation here, right? Well, with Unity, there really hasn't been a confirmation quite just yet. The problem with Unity's monthly chart is that the 20-month moving average is flattening out, but it's still pointing down, right? And it recently just got rejected at a slightly negative sloping 20-month moving average, right? And yeah, it's still negative pointing, but it looks like there might be a trend change that's coming soon, although there's no confirmation. So technically, this is still a falling knife. I just want to repeat that this is technically still a falling knife. But if you look at the volume profile, it does look like this is an accumulation range, right? Huge increase in buying volume. Selling volume is kind of flat. You do have a little bit of higher selling volume here back in January. So for February is almost over. You got 4 more trading days, although they're having another earnings report coming up Monday after hours, so it could potentially spike the volume one way or another. I would imagine the volume is probably spike up to here. If it turns out to be a big downwards angle here, which may mean that, sorry, I just don't want to pay for TradingView, which may mean that the downward, the selling pressure could still be on, potentially on decreased volume, right? But so far, the downtrend hasn't really had any commitment. We'll see what earnings show, but at this point, it could still be a falling knife, although the buying volume here tends to be quite favorable, right? And also the trend tends to seem like it's starting to, trying to make a trend change. It's spent about the last 6, 7, 8 months trying to challenge this 20-month moving average. Generally, these things are good sign. Like trying to touch it here, kind of got rejected, and it tried to go through and punch out, but it couldn't stay it because it's not a very good support. As it went back down to try and get a back test, it's not very good support when it's negative sloping like that. It's still negative sloping, so it's going to be more likely to be a little bit of resistance, but it could continue to chop here a little bit before it really starts to kind of base out, potentially to go up, right? There's no reason necessarily for you to necessarily go buy here because, again, this is still a falling knife unless proven otherwise, but I am happy about the volume trend. I tend to be one of those folks that like to catch falling knives. So you can catch a falling knife with me, or you don't have to, right? This is not financial advice. But this is one thing that I want to show you. Another thing that this is also still similar confirmation. You look at the cloud, generally I like to see the Tenkan get a little bit closer to the Kijun, where there could be potentially a bullish cross coming up soon, right? Right now they're still pretty far apart. Although the Kijun is starting to form a base, it's starting to get upslope a little bit, and the Tenkan is starting to form a base and starting a base right here, starting to upslope a little bit, and the Kijun is starting to go down, right? So there could be a possibility where these two can cross and become a bullish cross, but there's no confirmation. The cloud's not even going to be there yet because there hasn't been enough price history to show you that. Now, that's the monthly right now. Another thing I was a little bit concerned about it being a falling knife is on the weekly. As Unity tried to challenge the cloud twice from underneath and got rejected twice. Most recently over here, as it formed like a shooting star top, it went back down, couldn't really find support, right? And then tried to push out about the cloud, and it really couldn't have enough of the to kind of push it up, right? Right now, it's still a falling knife because it's below the cloud. Now, it did have a little bit of a bullish Tenkan Kijun cross here, although it just doesn't mean anything. It's just kind of chopping. You have like a bullish cross here, have a bearish cross here, bullish cross here, bearish cross here. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just chopping, right? I like the fact that it's challenging the cloud a couple times already. The more it challenges it, the more likely it's going to potentially make it cloud weaker. And the cloud over here on a weekly is also turned green. Green usually means go. It's more favorable. It's less of a resistance and more as a support. And the cloud is also getting pretty thin over here on this side. So there's a potential that, depending on what the earnings shows, it could push up and push through the cloud, right? But so far, there's no guarantee. And with earnings, I don't play earnings. I never know what's going to happen. I don't play it. But there's a potential for it to potentially go and push up, right? Another thing that I want to point out is that this is still a little bit of a potential falling knife, is that even though it's been forming a nice base, right now the price is below a flat bull market support band, which again means that there's no confirmation for a bullish trend on the weekly, right? So there's no confirmation of a bullish trend on the monthly, there's no confirmation of a bullish trend on the weekly, there's no confirmation there's a potential to make a lick down, right? There's just no guarantee. And when it comes to earnings, it's just so unpredictable. With that said, I still find the setup to be favorable because of how much buy volume has been happening and how much selling volume has been kind of, going down and flattening up. Here it looks like there's a big selling volume candle, right? But in reality, this actually looks like a very nice hammered candle where big volume down met by big volume up. So matter of fact, this is kind of like a reversal candle here. The fact that there's a big sell volume here is actually favorable to me. This candle is big volume, but it is met by decreasing selling volume over here too. It does look like the selling volume here has kind of really been exhausted. There's a little bit of buying volume here, but the selling volume here really looks like it's kind of really significantly exhausted. And everybody's just been waiting for earnings, so we'll see what happens. With that said, I do want to show you one thing here. And the one thing here, this looks really weird. The one thing here that I want to show without showing you my browser history is this. I want to show you the Fintel data for Unity. The Fintel data for Unity tells you that there's institutional accumulation, especially in January. The trend has been up in terms of institutional accumulation. Especially in January, there's a huge spike, right? Assuming that this data is correct. I happen to find the setup to be favorable, even though technically it's still a falling knife. We'll see what earning does. I just want to talk a little bit about it, kind of go through rationale as to why I'm in this stock. I am still, bullish on it, even though the technicals do not show confirmation. And even though the institution ownership is going up, it's still not really one of those stocks that are heavily accumulated by institutions. But regardless, I find this to be favorable. I do think that the metaverse narrative will come back. Even though the narrative has been really muted, I generally like to buy things ahead of the trend. I tend to be one of those folks that like to catch falling knives more than other people. You don't have to do what I do, right? This is not financial advice. You do you. I'm just showing you what I think. And I'm being fair because objectively there's no bullish trend. I do want to show you what I think though. And that's what I think. I will keep you updated on my thoughts after earnings as well. I will keep posting on X, formerly known as Twitter. I'll let you know. Thank you for listening. I'm going to keep this a little bit shorter. Have a great weekend. Bye.